When we talk about cheating in Elden Ring, there are a few distinctions that need to be made. First, what exactly is cheating? Is it just using custom software to alter your stats? Or is something like item trading cheating? What about buying items from third-party services? Or installing mods like seamless co-op? And where is the line regarding what, if anything, is acceptable? I want to say that everyone is going to have their own opinion on these questions, and the answers are not always as clear as we'd like. Please be respectful when fistfighting in the comments below. To answer the question of what is cheating, really anything done beyond the intended game experience could be considered cheating. Of course, that has a major caveat of defining the intended experience, but I think it's easy enough to identify any use of tools outside of what the game provides as cheating. While that won't tell us everything that could be considered cheating, it will at least tell us the most significant offenders. The big one is Cheat Engine, software that lets you manipulate in-game values using tables, among other methods. By using Cheat Engine, you can alter virtually any value of your character, ranging from levels to movement to damage. You can spawn in items and change game flags. You can even make your character entirely invulnerable and rapid-fire an insta-kill weapon of your choice, or just delete every enemy from the game with the push of a few buttons. It's a powerful tool with serious implications in an online game. So the question stands, is using Cheat Engine acceptable? Well, for a lot of people, it depends on how you use it. If you use Cheat Engine to do anything otherwise impossible in-game, then that's generally going to be over the line because it gives you a clear, unmatchable advantage. If you can be invulnerable by checking a box, that's pretty far from the intended gameplay and you'd be a dirty cheater. Of course, the context in which you do so probably matters too. If you're running through the game for whatever purpose and you want to toggle on infinite iframes so you don't have to interact with some boss or other damage mechanic, that's clearly cheating. But if you do it without interacting with another player, does it matter? Who cares if you got through the game by cheating? So long as you don't cheat while playing with others, where's the harm? While you're retaining the benefits of your progress this way, the cheat itself wouldn't give you any special advantage when not in use beyond that progress. I use the example of iframes because it's an easy to understand, over-the-line example. Infinite iframes is a classic method of cheating, and no one seriously tolerates it in online play. But what about something less clear? If you use Cheat Engine to spawn in items, is that over the line? You're not getting them the intended way, but if all you're doing is saving yourself time, should that be tolerated? You retain the benefits of the cheating because it's a one-time interaction, so the context of when you used it doesn't factor in the same way. This is a really complicated issue to dissect. On the one hand, saving yourself time by spawning in golem arrows is one of the only reasonable ways to accrue large amounts. Without cheating, the item suddenly becomes far less viable to use. Every shot you take would be using a precious resource you can't easily replace. By cheating, you can forego the implied cost of the item and use it without concern. It's a quality of life cheat rather than an outright breaking of the game. But it can still have a serious impact on the game. While it is possible for players to take the time to farm golem arrows, their rarity suggests they would not be regularly encountered. If most players aren't cheating, then most players won't have unfettered access to them. Meaning, whenever a player is cheating, they're getting an advantage. How much of an advantage is dependent on the item, but I think it should go without saying that if an item is worth cheating in due to its rarity and power, the advantage matters. Take, for another example, Starlight Shards. An item that lets you regenerate FP when consumed, with somewhere around 20 available per playthrough. They cannot be farmed, and are therefore extremely limited. Regardless of the number you have, you are restricted to 10 immediately available in your inventory at a time. You would need to pick up more to restore them mid-session, as you can otherwise only restock between encounters. Further, the item is tradable, meaning it can be dropped to other players and subsequently duplicated by reloading a save file. At what point is the use of the Starlight Shards cheating? If you trade your shards to another player, that's explicitly permitted in-game. Why else would you be able to leave and pick up items with other players if not for the purpose of trading? And the storage of Starlight Shards allows for up to 999 more beyond the 10 held in inventory. Both of these facts lead me to believe that the game is expecting you to stockpile them via trading and is only interested in limiting your immediate use. But trading has its limits. If you pay for someone to trade items, like through a third-party item seller, that would be against the terms of service and could be considered cheating, even if mechanically identical. Similarly, is a player who skips the burdensome step of getting other players to trade them Starlight Shards by just using Cheat Engine to spawn them in really cheating? They've arrived at the same end result with no money exchanged, and all they've done is save themselves and others considerable time. Still, technically, they are cheating. They haven't gone through the intended steps to acquire the item and have violated the terms of service. Not only that, but the item is accordingly devalued in its use because its rarity has been disregarded. It may not change what the item does, but it can certainly change how it's used. It's cheating, but is it over the line? On that note, is anything that's against the terms of service technically cheating? Doing anything against the intended experience is a violation of those terms, and I could see something as commonplace as forcibly disconnecting as a form of cheating. You're certainly avoiding the intended experience. Turn in your legitimate gamer card in the comments if you've ever done so. Using any glitches or exploits could also be considered cheating. They're largely unintentional, and that means you crossed the line. No more weird cancels or buff swapping for you, cheater. But what about someone who goes through the in-game method of trading, but skips a step by reloading their save between trades? It's a time save just like using Cheat Engine, but it doesn't require any special software, just the ability to copy and paste your save file. But this could easily be considered cheating. The game auto-saves frequently and does not allow players an explicit save option other than to quit out of the game. The game also synchronizes save files through cloud services, which can complicate save reloading. Even if you don't use Cheat Engine or trade duplication, you could use save reloading to restore lost items you gathered legitimately, essentially creating a bank of your completed character that you fall back on whenever you run low on supplies. This is a popular technique for invaders, and one that bears great resemblance to other methods of cheating. All of that is to say that any reloading of your save is a manipulation of the game that is likely unintentional. If easy anti-cheat could detect it, you'd almost certainly be punished, no matter the purpose or intent. It's exploiting the game externally and violating the terms of service. Therefore, by that definition, it's cheating. So that would leave us with the only legitimate way to get a stockpile of something like Starlight Shards being to either trade from many other players or to perform many playthroughs or some combination of both. And at that point, is it really worth it? More importantly, is it fun? This issue is persistent in Elden Ring. Items that are good are limited in some capacity, and the intended ways to address this limitation are so skewed that it seems like the developers are posing an ultimatum. Cheat, suffer, or lose. You can cheat and have the best of it all. You get the items you want at a pace you find acceptable, but with the risk of punishment if caught. You can suffer by doing things the acceptable way. You'll still get the items, but you'd be lucky to have any friends at the end, and luckier still if you still want to play. Or you can lose by playing traditionally. You won't have the best items, and your performance will suffer accordingly. Earlier, when I asked where the line was regarding cheating, this is what I was referring to. At what point is cheating, or something akin to cheating, acceptable for the sake of playability? The game has deliberately been set up to sidestep this question and let players self-govern to the best of their ability. Easy Anti-Cheat is a woefully inept tool to address many of these issues and has no real bearing on the question. Just because something is cheating doesn't mean it's wrong. If you were to keep a backup of your save file in the event of some catastrophe, like your save becoming corrupt or maliciously manipulated by a cheater, restoring that backup would be akin to cheating if we consider reloading saves to duplicate items cheating. The only difference is you're trying to correct an unintended error instead of gain an advantage. The ethics of the situation are clearly more palatable, but the methods remain the same. Likewise, if you had something done to your character that would alter your ability to matchmake, like having cut content injected into your save, using a tool like Cheat Engine to remove that injection certainly feels justifiable. But using Cheat Engine at all is a violation of the game's rules and is not permitted by Easy Anti-Cheat. If cut content were detected by Easy Anti-Cheat on your character, your entire account could be banned from online play. Your only method to undo it would be to appeal to Bandai Namco, who would, at a minimum, require you to delete your character with the infringing content. If someone cheated the content onto your character without your consent, you'd be punished all the same. Neither the developer nor the publisher are interested in making those distinctions. If the system says you cheated, you cheated. In this way, the punishment of cheaters has unintended consequences. While it's an extreme example, it absolutely happens. It happened to me in Dark Souls 3. And in a way, it's the system cheating those players out of their intended experience. Isn't that over the line? And there are a ton of other situations that could easily be rectified with Cheat Engine that would all be considered cheating, even if the alternative seems worse. If you accidentally overlevel your character or weapon, you'd lose access to your multiplayer bracket. Without cheating, you'd either need to start all over or accept your fate. In a game that can easily take 50 plus hours to complete, starting over is a serious punishment. Sure, you made a mistake, but does that punishment fit the crime? And to a very similar extent, should you really subjugate yourself to 9 additional playthroughs after your first just to have different builds? The game artificially limits the number of respecs you can acquire and gives you no option to de-level. You can't trade larval tiers, so if you run out and want a new build, you need to start over. Doesn't it make more sense to just cheat in everything you want for a character to save yourself as much time as possible? After all, there's no reward for playing the game other than personal enjoyment. If you aren't enjoying your time without cheating, doesn't cheating to save time sound reasonable? And the very fact that you have a character limit is something I find people who make many builds chafe against. Why only 10 characters? Is the game somehow incapable of reserving another 50 megabytes of data to give you 20 slots? Why not more? The limitation is completely arbitrary, and the only way around it is to either use multiple accounts or multiple saves. None of these may impact the game directly, but they require some external manipulation and therefore require a judgment to be made when determining acceptance. And we can go further with something like mods. Seamless co-op is one big cheat for Elden Ring. It takes away the restrictions on multiplayer and disables Easy Anti-Cheat. It lets you go so far as to disable invasions and match with players of any level without downscaling. It lets you play the game in a far more personalized way and is, in every way we've established, cheating. But is it wrong to play that way? Is that over the line? You can't take your save from Seamless back to the main game, so it's not like it will negatively impact players without the mod. So is cheating okay so long as it's in relative isolation? And it actually can impact players of the base game by removing those players from the pool for multiplayer. Sure, if everyone playing Seamless would otherwise not play at all, the impact wouldn't matter but I don't think that's the case. Playing on PC certainly feels less active than on a platform like PlayStation, and I imagine that's due, at least in part, to mods like seamless co-op. The line for any of these things is going to be somewhere, but I can't tell you where that line is because I'm not here to make a definitive judgment about any of this. I'm not a fucking cop. I think people need to play the game in a way that makes sense to them that is also respectful of others when engaging in multiplayer. Where that line sits is going to depend person to person. Personally, I don't use cheat engine in Elden Ring. I have duped items like consumable runes to expedite new characters, but I've backed away from such methods as my friend group has lost interest in the game. But it's also true that I don't make many characters anymore because it takes too long. I'd probably get better mileage out of the game if I just let myself cheat, but frankly, my interest in new builds has waned for a number of other reasons. And I prefer to simply play the game as intended when it comes to PvP. Even if I had traded down talismans or stacks of useful rare items, I'd prefer not to use them because I like the idea that my character exists legitimately, whatever that means. Specifically, I hate the idea that I'm breaking someone else's immersion. Obviously, what constitutes someone's immersion is going to be subjective, just like their attitude toward cheating, but I want to play in a way that doesn't generally encourage players to call hacks anytime I do something crazy. Of course, I have been accused of cheating by the simple virtue of having a twink build, but there's only so much that can be done. I only use Erdtree's Favor +1 because I don't want to remove access to the capital, and that's all the proof I need. But I don't mind if people want to trade their items or cheat them in or whatever, so long as they stay within the confines of the game. Using 10 Starlight Shards in a match is technically possible, so as far as I'm concerned, it's fair game. I can't determine how you got them, and I don't feel it matters. And the same is true of any consumable. I don't care if you have a bunch of golem arrows because regardless of whether or not you earned them, the game says you can have them, and they're the only way great bows are good. I don't care if you use a Blessing of Marika to clutch a victory because the game says you get one. With any of these issues around cheating, the answer is not to impose some sort of social limit or half-assed countermeasure to prevent it, but for the game to remove the benefits of cheating. If From Software had the willingness to simply let people conveniently purchase valuable items, no one would need to cheat them in, and players wouldn't be at an unintended disadvantage. It's a weird middle ground of a developer implementing rare and powerful items with minimal interest in how they might be exploited within the parameters of those restrictions. Cheaters are responsible for their behavior, but the blame should first fall on the developer for the environment they create and the behavior they encourage. If you think players are going to want to trade these items and are willing to allow them to do so, but still want to prevent cheating, maybe just let them buy them in-game. I guess we should be grateful they aren't selling a pack of rune bucks to use on the Elden marketplace, where we could buy Starlight Shards at 50 cents a pop or 10 for $4.50, but that's a conversation for another video. Without being able to outright purchase items in-game, Covenants would have been a great way to earn these items, but that ship sailed years ago. Now, the most we could hope for is better rewards from invasions and the Colosseum. Multiplayer rewards are essentially non-existent, as rune arcs don't even exist in the conversation around cheated-in items. Something like Larval Tears or Starlight Shards would be a welcome addition. Anything to encourage engagement with the system in a healthy, accessible, repeatable way. And I'd love to see all multiplayer get the same treatment as the Colosseum, where items used during a multiplayer session are restored at the end. It could work for everyone but the host, maybe even the host, and would go a long way toward ending the imbalances around item access. And what about the fucking crafting system? What a complete and total miss. Extra steps and no way to make most useful items? For shame, Elden Ring. For shame. All said, cheating in Elden Ring is a mixed bag. I'm convinced that the solution is for FromSoft to develop their games in a way that removes the incentive, rather than blindly swinging at the problem like a kid with a piñata. Let me know how you feel about cheating in Elden Ring, and where you draw the line down below in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more content. Until next time, thank you for watching.